Now, hey, I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a fiberglass repair. This is this 89 Corvette. I'm going to be using this stuff called kitty hair right here. And I'm using the long hair stuff, the long strand. I was told that'd be better because it'd be maybe a little harder to work with, but it'll give you a stronger repair. And basically you can use the kitty hair if it's just kind of minor cracks like this. If it's really bad, you're going to have to use the sheets of stuff and then the glue and put it over it. It'll be a lot harder, but these minor cracks right here are pretty easy. Like if you already know how to do body work, like using Bondo, you can do this. It's pretty easy. So I talked to a pro guy who works in a body shop, asked him for some advice too, and his advice was actually you want to grind all the way through the fiberglass so there's a hole in the other side, and then you can just put some tape underneath it to reinforce it, and then just put the kitty hair on top of it. But unfortunately with this car, there's a second layer of fiberglass beneath this, so I couldn't get to the back of it. So what I'm doing is I'm just grinding through it, as you see in that last part, like right before it kind of goes through it, and there's like a little hole there. So you kind of want you want there to be like a lot of the kitty hair filler stuff to give it a really strong repair and give it a lot of strength through it. So right here I'm just grinding it all down. And I think it's a 60 grit attachment I'm using on that grinder, and you can see there's little cracks there, and on the edge there you kind of want to just grind into it a tiny bit, and don't make it very wide, because the hardest part of this repair here is getting that shape of the edge of the fender perfect again. So you'd want to leave as much of that still there as possible. Now that I've got the stuff all grinded, I'm just going around it with 80 grit sandpaper with a power sander, and I'm just scuffing up all the edges all around there so the filler can have something to stick to. And I just want to say, I'm not a pro, so if I do anything wrong here, just let me know in the comments. But I didn't see any other tutorials on how to do this, so I thought I would show one. And here you just want to blow it off. I put water on there and went to wipe it off, but the fiberglass, it absorbs the water and it takes forever to dry, so don't do that unless you're gonna leave it overnight. And then the strands from the fiberglass catch on the cloth to use it anyway, so just blow it off. Don't use any water to clean the dust off. And then I had this idea to put the tape around it here, and it worked really well. I'm glad I did that. I kept doing it. It made it a lot easier. So here I'm just applying it, and I'm doing this in direct sunlight. Definitely don't do that. And when you put the stuff on there, push it down really hard with the spreader. Push it down really hard to make sure it gets in all the cracks, and you get it to adhere like really well. Now you can see that I taped the tape off. It makes it a lot easier because like the original shape of the fender is still there. So now I can just like grind away the edges and stuff, and using the tape made it a lot easier to shape it and everything. It's a little way to cheat. I really liked it. And then yeah, you can use a sander here. It's easier just to use the grinder. And I'm kind of pushing on it. It looked like the repair there was like that one spot was a little weak to push it in, but it seemed pretty good. And then you want to wait to like round off the edges and stuff, and that'll be the last step that you do. I'm just going, I think that's a 40 grit that I'm using right now, just getting like the basic shapes done. You can see it's a little low there on the fender, so I need to pile it up there more first. And then yeah, I think that part was a little weak, or there's a crack or something, so I'm adding more, and then I'm really piling it on that low section there, because I need the fender to be high enough to where I can get the shape correct. This is either an 80 grit, it could be a 40 grit I'm using on the sander. I think I actually wanted to use a 40 grit, but I didn't have any, so I had to use 80. But it's quicker if you use the 40 grit at first. Yes, I'm just keeping that edge of the fender flat for now. Keeping it a sharp edge. Rounding it off would be the very last thing that you want to do. And you're going to use the kitty hair stuff until you pretty much get the shape like pretty good. It can be like a little concave, and then you're just going to put a normal body filler on top of that, and then you can do your shaping. But you want to get like mainly, you know, you want to use the body filler so it's only like an 1/8 of an inch thickness max. I think you want to keep it under that. So you want to use the kitty hair and get it on there like thick, and get the shape pretty much flat, and then you put the body filler on last, and then you know you can use the spot repair stuff to fill in the little pinholes in the body filler. And I'm just still piling it on there. That little edge there was still a bit low for the shape of the fender. And oh yeah, I just want to add, when you're grinding down the fiberglass, I kind of found it out the hard way. It's best to wear, you might want to wear a full suit to be the best thing to do. But if you don't have that, just wear like long sleeves, long pants, make sure you wear gloves. Make sure that you wear safety glasses and a respirator. The little hairs can and don't touch anything. Like don't touch your face or anything, because the little hairs will get and they'll make your skin all itchy and irritated. And I found that out the hard way. I'd never worked with fiberglass before. The pro I talked to was actually mentioning that, and I didn't know what he was talking about until I felt like a part of my face get kind of itchy. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, so here I'm just putting on, now I'm ready for the just the normal body filler. I use this Evercoat stuff, and I just get the cheapest one, and then I get the honey, it's called like honey, and you can mix that in with it to thin it down however you want. And it's cheaper than buying, like you can buy the more expensive Evercoat that I think is a bit thinner and easier to work with, but it's cheaper just to buy the honey, and then you can just add that onto it. And I think it kind of makes sense to do like the first coat with like very little amount of the honey, and then as you do more coats you can add more and more honey, because it'll make it easier to sand and easier to work with. But it'll be like a little less strong, and it gets a little more expensive, you know, because the honey is more expensive than the Evercoat stuff. But yeah, I was using like Bondo brand at first. That shit, it sucks compared to the Evercoat. Get the Evercoat, it's way more expensive. The Evercoat is like $20 for a gallon can of it. So like a DIY guy like me, it'll last forever. The Bondo shit is really expensive. It's really hard to sand and work with. It's terrible. So now I'm really starting to get that bottom edge of it perfect, getting rid of all the little cracks there, trying to cover up like all the little hairs. And okay, so now what I'm doing, like I took a piece of paper and I like made an edge. I think I compared it to the other fender too, and then I made a little mark on the paper to how thick the fender was, and then I moved that all along the edge of the fender to make sure that the thickness of it was perfect. And now the last step, I'm going down and rounding off that edge, and I think I'm using, I think it's a 220 grit that I'm using here. You can even wait and use like you don't want to use the rougher grit when you're smoothing out the edge like that. Use a really fine grit, and just go in there really lightly when you do it at an angle, and just do it like really lightly, like a 220 grit. You could even use a 320. And now I'm putting the primer on, obviously. And I think when I sand the Evercoat, I just start off with like an 80, And then I think I finished off with a 320 is what before I put the primer on with this, that's what the tech sheets say, to use a 320. You could use a 400 too. And I like to use the Kansas primer. It's just a lot easier. It's like, I work in my driveway. It takes a lot of time to clean out the spray guns and mix the paint and everything. And then here's the finish right here. And the shape of the fender came out perfect, to be honest. It came out really nice. You can't even tell that there was a repair done there. The paint did get kind of messed up, to be honest. I got a lot of dust in the clear coat, and then my air compressor wasn't big enough for that hood, which I didn't think about. I have a 33-gallon air compressor, and I think it got moisture in it, which gave it kind of dye back. The finish came out kind of dull. But the shape came out really nice. And I just wanted to add, the only hard part really was getting that shape of the fender perfect. But like, if you didn't have to do the edge of the fender, it's really easy. If you've done body work before, you can have no problem with this. Really, the only difference you have to remember, since you're not working with metal, is that when you're blocking it out and like sanding down after you're done, you have to make sure that you want to leave as much of the original shape as you can. And you have to make sure you're not sanding down into it, because it's a lot easier to sand through the metal, especially when you're using power tools. It's really easy to sand, down into the fiberglass, as you can see when I was using the grinder and the sander and those little clips. So just take your time when you're doing it. Really easy. And then also you'll get little hairs sticking up too. Just put your primer on there pretty thick. It might take a few coats of primer, but once you sand it down and like block the primer and everything, those little hairs should go away, because I was a little worried about that at first, but you couldn't see them when the finished product. So I hope this helped you guys out. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment if you have any questions or tips, and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.